Hotep. This is Nimrod X, coming to you from the lab again, dropping some science on you on the metaphysics of the Planet of the Apes. It's a very interesting movie. It's about black people. There are a lot of metaphors and subliminal messages embedded in this movie. Remember that all the comments they make about the apes are really references that they're making to black people. Their views are also that in the manner of saying of which they view black people. Caesar, his name, he's a leader. He's wearing a red jacket, which is a jacket that falls under the sign of Mars, the war god, which means that what? Blood is going to be shed before this is over. His mother was ape number 12. She gave birth to him. He becomes ape number 13. They killed 12 apes. He's the only survivor. So he's the chosen one. And also 13 is a number of transformation. Remember, Jesus had 12 disciples. And somewhere in that Bible, do you remember when he said he is ascended? He was transfigured and then he ascended. So he stepped to a higher level of consciousness. Again, Caesar is given a drug. The drug's name is what? Genesis, the genes of Isis, the first chapter in the Bible. So he is given a drug that does what? It elevates his level of consciousness and intellect. He goes into a prison. He enlightens all the convicts or the prisoners there. Why? We are prisoners of our own minds. He gets the drug called Genesis, and it's Genesis 1:12. Remember that 1 and 12 is 13. 12 disciples, 1 leader. Okay, and he throws it into the cages. Now, do you know that the ape whose name was Buck? Why? Because Buck is wild. He's an ape. He's a wild ape. So he's Buck Wild. They play with words and names in this movie. You just got to peep the subliminals. Caesar enlightens the other apes. They all become enlightened. They break out of jail where they're being abused. And there's a part where you see the older white man that's running that prison. He sees all the apes not fighting, not running around crazy, but they're all communing and they're talking. This is the white man's greatest fear, when black people stop fighting and actually start to communicate and form a united front. That is why he's constantly putting things in our midst that will cause chaos and confusion, because he knows his days are numbered. And as long as he keeps us confused, we can never see the trickery that's being played upon us to keep him in the position that he's in. But this is basically the same strategy that's used in the corporate environment. There are several levels to the corporate pyramid. He sits at the top. And as you go further and further up the pyramid, there are less positions, but at the same time... Oh, shit. Unplugged my computer by accident. Okay, good. We're back on point. But at the same time, the people that you deal with as you go up that ladder are more ferocious, most vicious, more conniving. They're very tricky people. But this is where it's set up. So he sits at the top and he's in a safe place. That's why your boss can usually be the nicest person in the world. Why? Because he's got all these other people running interference for him to keep his position secure. So he's not too worried about you if you're at the bottom of the totem pole trying to get to where he is, because he knows there's so many different people protecting him. And that's how the game is played. See, so they are in a position of comfort. And don't let any white person ever fool you and say, hey, I got a lot of black friends. Because the first question you ask them about white privilege is, okay, if you're white and you've got black friends, when your friends make cracks about them, do you stand up for them? When you go to places where blacks are not allowed, do you boycott, or do you enjoy the privilege of still being able to go in there? So here is the question. You've got black friends, but how much do you represent them in your forums? See, this is what we got to start waking up to. Just like in the corporate environment, they set up a system where what? The welfare system came about. They only gave aid to the women and told the men hit the streets. Then when men started getting jobs, they started to do what? Pay the black women more. Why? Because that way the black women would feel better than the black men and always look down on them and even make cracks or remarks about them and make the work environment more hostile. All of this to protect themselves. See, this is the game. But I'm going to go into more detail at a later time. But for right now, watch Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And I'm going to ask you a few other questions as we go along, because we got to start waking up. Manifest your pineal. This is Nimrodon Zero, the Nimrod X, and I'm out. Hotep.